Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Well, here I am. Um, I'm back. I was absent for about a week, and I truly apologize to you because, well, you should be aware of the fact that I just moved, living in a different house. It's far away from the city center, as I told you. I tried to communicate, but I could not. The reality is that I only have one possibility for my wireless connection, and that is Telmex, which is well, really deficient. I also got ill because of the emotional charge regarding moving. I had to do many things. I'm still working on that, fixing some bits and pieces of my new home, my new house, and well, I'm facing tough times at the moment, unfortunately. But I'm really happy to be back, and I want to show you a presentation for the following unit, which is focused on reading comprehension, how to develop reading skills. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I will try to be short and sweet. Okay, I'll keep it that way. It's a short presentation. You will see. Here it is. It's loading. Well, it's a short presentation on reading, basically. Well, as you know, we have the four skills of the language: reading, writing, speaking, listening. We divide them into receptive and productive skills. Unit 3 and Unit 4. I'm sorry. Unit 3 is focused on reading and listening, which are the receptive skills. These skills have got a lot of input, okay? And this is the time when we need to remember comprehensible input from crashing. How input plays a paramount role for language learning or language acquisition. Um, on the other hand, we have productive skills, speaking and writing. In real communication, as a matter of fact, we employ the four skills. Not only do we need to listen to others and understand them, but we also need to produce, and we want others to understand our messages. If we integrate the four skills, we can think of a competence, language competence. And of course, we have different kinds of competence. But regarding the four skills, we could say that we can comprehend and that we can communicate. And in that term, we would be talking about communicative competence and linguistic competence. Now, the reading skill has to do with written discourse, okay, texts. And for understanding a text, we need to go through a process of immersion regarding culture, regarding society, communities, meaning, what words represent to us, and reasoning, which has to do with our critical thinking. Reading is an elaborate process, okay, where we aim to find stories other stories, our own stories, and continuously telling them, you know, we can find some procedures and sequences for reading according to Harmer. You have already read Harmer. At this time, you should have. Um, I found this quotation from Krashen that I want to shed light on before establishing the sequences and the different reading strategies, techniques, and tips. When students read for pleasure, when they get hooked on books, they acquire involuntarily and without conscious effort nearly all of the language skills many people are concerned about. If we connect the ideas of this quotation with Krashen's hypothesis, well, we can dimension now how important comprehensible input is for his theory and for language learning and acquisition. Here you have an arrow. I'm going to show you the arrow. I'm going to move this here. Intensive reading. Intensive reading is a strategy, a technique for students to read in the classroom, whether face to face or online. Intensive reading is focused on content and language, but it's carried out in the classroom. Teachers need to be careful regarding selecting reading material, texts. Intensive reading, you know, is most of the times compulsorily. There are some reading principles we need to follow in order to work with intensive reading. Those reading principles are going to be presented in the following slide. Additionally, we need to follow reading sequences. The sequences are represented in Harmer's examples of how to teach vocabulary and how to develop, how to teach reading and how to develop reading skills. You have for about 9 or 8 examples of reading sequences where you present, where you produce, or where you practice. Remember that we are trying to follow this PPP approach. And finally, we have extensive reading, which is the ultimate goal of reading comprehension lessons. Extensive reading is the final step for students to carry out. Extensive reading has to do with the pleasure of reading, you know, to read a text just because of your own interest and just because you want to be informed about anything that could be relevant for you and meaningful for your life. That is extensive reading. Well, it's tough, it's difficult because not everybody reads. And to read in the classroom, well, might be doable, feasible to a certain extent, but to ask students to read by their own, well, I guess most of you know that it's not an easy task. Now, regarding reading material, from your own experience, think of what you have faced while learning from elementary school until university level. A balance between real English and your interests needs to take place, okay? But hardly ever do we see teachers who take into consideration students' interest. because of many factors, okay, internal and external, because they need to cover a lot of units and content from a syllabus design, from a curriculum, or because of the language policies, or because of the school's philosophy. Um, there is also a need for extensive and intensive text to work in the classroom, but to trigger students in order to work with the text, more in depth at home for pleasure, just because they want to be informed, just because they really got the point to get that knowledge. We cannot motivate them, they should be motivated. Uh, Motivation is something that is intrinsically developed, okay? But we can create an atmosphere which is appropriate for reading to take place. There are some reading skills that we usually take into account when teaching and when learning, and those are scanning, for looking for a specific information in detail, skimming, which is a general overview of the reading and the content, and reading for detailed comprehension that focuses on language systems, specific vocabulary, the lot of vocabulary they should learn, or focusing on a specific language systems such as grammar or pronunciation even. The reality is that the four skills merged, they are connected, they are intertwined. Um, Whenever we are teaching reading lessons, we figure out that they are not isolated, but they usually come from other skills or lead to other skills, but they are connected. Now, the reading principles I was referring to. Students should be encouraged to read as often and as much as possible. To take every single opportunity for them to read is important. Okay? This is something we need to take into consideration for the activities we will propose for this week. Students need to be engaged with what they are reading. Sometimes we are giving the material to be used in the classroom as teachers, and of course, as students. What is our task? What is our role? Well, our role as a teacher is to create an appropriate atmosphere for students to be engaged, to be interested in the text. Okay, we can't change the text, but we can create the environment. Encourage students to respond to the content of a text. Well, you need to foster critical thinking, higher order thinking skills by setting specific objectives, by implementing participation tasks, active participation from students, by asking questions. Well, we will see a couple of strategies. Prediction strategies, well, those are principles for reading. There is one section on your sequence, which is pre-reading. Okay, for the pre-reading, you should focus on the title, on the captions, on the pictures, for the students to predict the story, to predict what they are about to read. I think this activates schemata, and that's likely to work effectively for learning, for being concentrated on reading. Match the task to the topic when using intensive reading text. Okay. You could do this by means of general objectives and specific objectives. Okay. Exploit reading text to the full. That means that if you could use a single sentence, for working on critical thinking, working on language system, whether pronunciation, grammar, or vocabulary, working on reading skills, speaking skills, listening skills, to implement collaborative work, to cover a number of learning styles, and to foster a, a higher order thinking skill. So a text is really rich. It all depends on the way we use the text and how we do it. Any reading text is full of words, sentences, ideas, descriptions, information. Consequently, the importance of integrating the reading text into lesson sequences, because reading often follows on from work on other skills, such as writing, speaking, or listening, or it is followed by those skills. So they are integrated, okay? Now, tips to include in a presentation practice production task, which is something you're going to do. To look at the structure of the text, the title, the captions, integrate pictures, integrate video, an explanation, okay? Think of the instructions carefully. So the form of the text is important. Identify the kind of text it is. Literature, poetry, information, instructions, commands, science, research, papers, articles. Okay, identify the kind of text, because that way you're going to establish objectives and procedures for the task for each of the activities. And of course, you're going to be able to design your items for practicing. To analyze the form of the text by focusing on visual aids, diagrams, maps, observing the pictures. Not to stop to read every single word. To use compensatory strategies. To infer, imply, to connect ideas. To read chunks of words. Remember vocabulary learning? Well, fragments, not isolated words. To try to guess the meaning of words you don't know or simply ignore them. Okay? I mean, you could do it or your potential students will. So you need to take into consideration these tips and tricks for presenting practice reading comprehension. Now, we have a couple of reading strategies. Previewing, observing the heading, subheadings, images, in order to get an idea of the structure and the content of the text. You could ask questions, Of course, you need to go over a student's previous knowledge of the topic. Then you have predicting, employing students' knowledge about the language, the topic, the kind of text, and purpose of the text. Skimming, reading the text quickly or parts of the text so as to get the main ideas. Scanning, looking for a specific information in the text. Guessing from the context, compensatory strategies. using your previous knowledge or a student's previous knowledge and ideas to guess the meaning of words they don't know. Paraphrasing, stopping at the end of each paragraph to interpret with the students' own words what they have read, what they understood. The process of explanation usually provides with illustrative examples of actual learning. Now, reading sequences. The reading sequences refer to intensive reading in the classroom, okay? And then to bear in mind the language system, grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation. Reading is at the core. It could be face-to-face learning, online learning, and you will see how the other skills might be integrated. Writing, speaking, listening. Reading sequences include all the language skills. So indeed, they become integrated skills. Now, there are different kinds of text, as I said, even pictures or photos. All of them are texts that could be interpreted, because they carry information, a diagram, a graph, an informative text, a test, a map. All of them are texts, and they can work for teaching and learning. When working with a text, we need to take care of the relevance of the topic. We need to identify the audience, the learners, whether they would be interested or not. The language difficulty, okay, how complex the language could be, the language focus, grammar, vocabulary load, etc. For checking the vocabulary load, you could go to the following web page. There, you can actually dimension the level of the words you are to teach or learn. A1, A2, B1, B2, according to the Common European Framework. Okay, so text selection is important. The length of the text also plays an important role. Number of pages, paragraphs, whether one class is enough or you need to plan it for 2 classes. Cultural difficulty, the use of metaphors, metaphorical competences, the age of your students, and all the language learner variables need to be taken into account. Text should not be so culturally dense that students feel excluded from understanding essential meaning. And cultural appropriateness, learners should not be offended by textual content. These are examples of some previous students who have worked with reading, and they are the outcomes of working with reading and comprehension lessons. They usually start reading by their own, intensive and extensive reading connected, and they actually connect different skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Not all students can become active readers because it all depends on many factors. Motivation is very important when reading for any purpose, but more than motivating students, we can create suitable environments for them to feel interested, at least for covering the text. The role of the teacher is very important when enhancing reading, facilitating content, okay, input, and getting students to provide with feedback. Of course, you need to know the text. You need to know what it is about and the variables of the text. Those are the references. What you should have already read, and now I'm going to share with you the task for this week regarding reading. Okay, here I go. I'm gonna stop sharing, and now I want to share with you Eminus. Here you are. Check. First and foremost, you need to read one brief text on reading comprehension and then Harmer's chapter 17 for about 10 pages. You will focus on the learning examples, teaching examples as well for the reading receptive skill from page 283 to page 302. After that, you will go to the reading task. Okay, this is all placed in Unit 3, Developing Reading and Listening Skills. There, you will be able to watch this video before the activity, by the way, and then read Harmer's again, revise the examples of reading lesson sequences, and you will take a look at two texts below. You need to prepare a reading comprehension activity using only one text. You will choose. Your activity should focus on only one of the following stages, whether presentation or practice. If you decide to work with presentation, you have the detailed instructions here from A to F. Now, if you decide to work with practice, you have the detailed instructions from A to F as well here. Choose only one. You can add other elements to the text, such as pictures, film, video, tracks, whatever you need, whatever you think it's necessary, as long as you keep the original text, okay? Identify the most suitable language learner for your potential students by analyzing the text and include it in the information at the top of your activities. Include also the most relevant information for your planning, such as classroom management, timing, number of students, and more variables. Make sure that you try to enhance learners' critical thinking and take into consideration the strategies we just checked, such as skimming, scanning, internal and intensive and extensive reading, reading for detailed comprehension, reading principles, etc. Remember to keep coherence and sequence along all stages. State the option you chose at the beginning of your planning. Upload your planning in a Word file in the activities section of Eminos, there. And here you have the text. Identify the kind of text and use the one that you wish, okay? This is text number 1. It's very short. This is text number 2. It's very short as well. Robert Frost. You choose. Now, you have from today until next Monday, December the 7th. Okay? So you have plenty of time. I apologize to you. I'm really sorry. I'm awfully sorry for being absent. That was my bad. I take responsibility of that. But I think you have plenty of time to work from today until Monday. Okay? Should you need more time, please let me know. But I don't think you will. This is fair enough. That's what I believe. Okay? Well, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. And if you have any questions, you can write me an email and I will go to you. Okay, I will write back, of course. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. And well, thank you for your patience. I truly appreciate it, man. Well, we'll keep in touch and I will see you around.